And for more on that story and a few others making headlines today, we're joined by former diplomat Ian Kemish. Good morning to you, Ian.
Morning to you both. Good to be with you.
Morning.
Just on that Guardian story, if we can stay with it there. So Keir Starmer, quote, Putin is dragging his feet over the 30-day Ukraine ceasefire. It also looks at that coalition of the willing phone hookup overnight that we've been talking about. What do you make of this development?
Well, it's Sunday morning, of course, here, and we haven't yet had the opportunity to hear from our own Prime Minister or our own government much about this teleconference, but the messaging from the British Prime Minister is very, very clear. I think that it's really interesting to watch the UK carve out a bit of a role for itself at this point, in the sense that it's clearly seeking to, and Starmer personally is clearly seeking to influence the US position, bridge the gap, the yawning gap now between the EU and the United States, but also keep the pressure up on Russia. And, you know, the messaging from him particularly, we've seen it from some others, from traditional US allies now sounds quite different to the messaging from Washington. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We're going to need, I think, to see more of that from Australia too, as the post-Second World War international arrangements fray at the seams.
Well, I'm sure you're right there, Ian. Everything's being redrawn in international relations right now. Just drawing on your experience, though, I think this is a bit of a debate in sections of Europe. Do you think this proposal might be aided by some sort of UN mandate that took it beyond just the formation of a coalition of the willing?
Look, theoretically, yes. I must say that I have, part of my experience was in former Yugoslavia in the mid-1990s, and the truth was that a coalition that was not backed by a UN mandate, because it was impossible to obtain in those circumstances, turned out to be more effective than the previous UN and other arrangements that had applied there. A UN mandate is extremely difficult to get, of course, because you need UN Security Council cover, and Russia has the veto. So in these circumstances, and we have seen it historically, not only in Yugoslavia, we've seen it in other cases, coalitions do come together without that ultimate universal mandate from the United Nations, and can be quite effective. I don't personally believe they need to be neutral. I think that it's a matter of standing by Ukraine in circumstances that are very dangerous for that country.
And as you mentioned, Ian, we are waiting to hear from local reaction here, particularly from the Prime Minister, which I'm sure will happen at some stage, either today. He is speaking on the ensuing days, because there is that Thursday hookup with military chiefs that will determine more of a plan. But moving on to another story in the Australian Financial Review, the headline reads, Trump killed America's aid program. It's catching on. Just how concerning is this development of anti-aid contagion spreading after the US made those developments with USAID?
I think it's very concerning, and I think Australia in particular is going to be impacted by this. We all know that this has been part of the narrative for the course of the last several years now, that there is a geostrategic competition at play in the Pacific and more broadly in the Indo-Pacific. Commitment through development assistance is a clear soft power sign of support. And it's been useful to have the United States contributing alongside Australia in our region through its aid program. Now, the truth is that US aid in our region has always actually been relatively small. The United States has been traditionally the fifth largest donor to the Pacific in particular, and it only obtains the fifth position because it has a whole set of arrangements with its affiliated states, you know, states in the Pacific that actually vote people into Congress, like, you know, the various states of Micronesia. So not a major player, but useful to have them on board. So Australia's actually done most of the heavy lifting in the Pacific in terms of development cooperation to date. We're going to have to do more of it. Equally, you know, we've in relatively recent times heard encouraging messages from countries like Germany and the United Kingdom that they're going to step in alongside us in the Pacific and in our region. That seems to be very much at risk as they seek to reduce their aid budgets, largely in favour of their defence budgets. And I think the message for Australia is we've been leading this for some time in the region. If we're serious about development cooperation as an important tool in winning hearts and minds in the region, and also, by the way, in saving lives and, helping bring education to girls and all the rest of it, then we're going to have to do more of it, whether Australians like it or not. And in my view, they should like it. It's actually a very small contribution in national terms, and it is in our interests.
All right, let's just bring it back home to where you are, the Sunshine Coast being your home, Ian Kemish. Just quickly, the Sunshine Coast News is one of our articles for review. It's focusing on the erosion of the shoreline and the beaches there. Apart from the article, what are you seeing?
Well, I did manage to get out to the beach just before this interview, guys, and it's looking pretty nice out there. I must say there is a fair bit of erosion. I'm on the Sunshine Coast. We have a place up here, and even though we're Brisbane-based, and there it is. There's a photograph of my beach from this morning. It is seriously eroded, but I think it'll come back quite quickly. It's a lovely day up here, and no, I don't get any sponsorship from the Queensland Tourist Board Bureau.
I don't think it needs to. It speaks for itself. Ian, we're out of time. I was just wondering if that you've got that picture of the beach behind you. I was wondering if that's in replacement to what's building back right now in the reel.
Yeah, that's just a picture. Yeah. It's much nicer out there, believe me.
All right, Ian Kemish, thanks so much for your time.
Cheers.